everybody, Tony Phelan here from CompetitionX, and today on the workbench we have a new vehicle from Tamiya. This is the Astute 2022. Now this is a two-wheel drive version of their previously released TD2 Super Avante. Basically, the back half of the car is roughly 95% the same as that car. It is the front clip that is now different in this. Since this is a two-wheel drive car, they basically removed the front diff as well as the outdrives, which allows this car to have a little bit different front end. It's got a little kick up on the front as well. So this will be a fun vehicle to drive, being two-wheel drive. But what we're gonna do first is we're gonna take the kit over to the workbench, get it unboxed, see what's inside. So we'll see you in a minute. The Astute 2022. Based on the TD2 chassis. You can kind of see the rear end of the car. Looks pretty much the same. It's the front end that's gonna be different with all the changes. The TD4 had four-wheel drive, so it needed a front gearbox. This whole area needed to be beefed up a little bit for the axles coming out. Obviously, two-wheel drive does not have that, so a lot of the front end has changed. I don't know if I can really show you this. It's probably difficult to show you. Maybe you can see that. Okay, let's just get inside the box. So, there you go. All right, we're gonna move the box off to the side to make it easier to put all the parts up here so you can see them. Let's get to the easy stuff first. The new wheels and tires. Okay, so it looks like it uses their Star wheels, Tamiya Star wheels. These are the rears, wide rears, narrow fronts. And then you have a pin rear tire and a ribbed front tire. These look like the old tires we used to run back in the day before all the super duper two-wheel drive buggy tires came out. We used to run ribs like this. Next thing we're going to check out is the body. There's the rear wing taped inside there. The body's similar to the TD4. Has the bubbly cab here. Fenders. Fender. This piece here looks like the interior goes up in underneath the cab here where the driver sits. So there's the body. You do notice though that there's these bulges here. That's because the TD2, in the TD4 the battery sat this way. In the TD2, the battery sits this way. So you need these little bulges here to accommodate that battery pack. Okay, I'm gonna move this out of the way. Okay, first bag. So this looks like the revised front end. Yeah, little kick up here on the front end. Looks like front piece there and front piece here for the steering. So this is a new tree here for this car. Oh, it also comes with, so because the drive shaft comes out of the rear of the car and moves to the front for the four-wheel drive, they had to somehow block that so that, because there's no drive shaft. So this little pin here basically covers up the hole that the drive shaft used to come out of. So it kind of caps the hole. Okay, these are two of the exact same trees. So this has your battery box, the rear faux exhaust, body mounts, wing mounts, all of your rod ends, gearing, anti-roll bar mounts, some shims. Yeah. So there's that. Comes with two trees of that. It's funny how some of these bags are like super tough to cut through and some of these are like toilet paper. All right, so these are front and rear. So these two trees are exactly the same. You got, looks like maybe rear arms, front arms. These are the mounts for that mount the fenders. Wheel hexes, more shims. hinge pin balls. Wow. And the chassis. The chassis is exactly the same. There's no difference in the chassis. Basically, again, this is all rear gearbox. Right here was the center drive shaft that came out to the front. And the way Tamiya did this was on the TD2, they had a different front end that basically keyed in here, kind of keyed in there, and you had your front end. The way you make a two-wheel drive car, you just make a different front end. You leave the rest of the car the way it is, and you key in a whole different front end to the front. So that's what Tamiya did. They also had caps here on the TD2 to block this off because the battery sat this way. In this car, you just use the same chassis and you put these pieces here. I think we looked at them here. These guys right here. Oh, I'm sorry. These guys right here. And they connect on the balls here, on the standoffs here, extend out a little bit more, and now you can mount the chassis that way. So, good way to reuse chassis. All your steering parts. These rear hubs, front hubs, steering knuckles, and your front cantilevers for the shocks. And some shimming stuff. And we have, this is the rear gearbox. This attaches back here under the motor here, or under the chassis here. The top piece here caps the top of the chassis back here. Rear shock tower. Rear hinge pin mount. This piece goes across here for the battery mount. If you mount your speed control receiver up on top of that, or you can mount them off of here. Gear cover. There you go. Spur gear mount. One last bag here. This is the front bumper. Now I'll be interested to see which one of these, because these two front bumpers are different. They do mount differently. So depending on the front end, which we'll get to when we build it, it'll be interesting to see how these work. Rear bumper, body mount, hoop that goes behind the driver, like that, on top of that. All important black antenna tube. And then we have, Tamiya always kind of does a really neat job of combining all of their hardware inside a little box like this. This makes it clean inside the box for one. Makes it very easy to keep it organized as well. Unless you can't get it open. All right, we're just gonna see, we've got the driver figure. Same driver figure as in the TD2. Shock parts here. Same shock parts as the TD2. Your Shiro saver. Oh, look at that, a different driver head. This is not included in the TD2. So you can have an open face or a closed face helmet. More shock parts. Now the two different bags, I'm not quite sure exactly what it was, but one is for front, one is for rear. So you make sure when you do this, you don't mix these up. Bag A has the motor mount, bearings. That's another cool thing about this kit. It comes with all bearings. Bearings, spur gear, a lot of your internal gears there. Maybe we can open these up so you can get a better idea. Probably time for a new X-Acto blade. Okay, so there's some internal gears there. Hardware. Motor mount, bearing and drive shafts, I guess. Ball and rod ends, mounting hardware, your spur gear, your motor gasket. This goes between the motor and the gasket here, or the motor and the motor mount there. If you use one, I don't ever use one because I like the motor to be right up against here to dissipate as much heat as possible. Your AW grease, and a wear grease, and your diff grease. Okay. More shock parts. These are shock bodies, and so basically clear bag goes a clear bag, blue bag goes a blue bag. So there you go. We have mounting hardware, body clips. This also has some Velcro, and I think the Velcro, you can put the Velcro between the body and the chassis, and that's how you can clamp it on there so that it doesn't, you don't necessarily need to use the body mounts, you can use the Velcro. Some foam double-sided tape, some foam padding for the battery area, and then these have little foam discs. Here, we'll show you. These are used on all of the rod end, on all the ball ends to prevent dirt from getting between the ball and the ball end. So it'll basically go on the ball like in between here. And then we have, looks like some of the mounting, some tools. Got the Tamiya 4-way wrench, turnbuckle tool, L wrenches, and then some other miscellaneous hardware. We're just gonna put that right back in there. I think I put the other one in there too. Okay. Oh, nope, it's on my finger. All right, the B bag. The B bag has your ball diff in it. Single ball diff, since it is only a 2-wheel drive car. There's your diff gear, ball diff gear. Your rings, spring, some shims. Your dog bones that go out to the rear wheels. Your axles for the rear wheels. Diff balls, thrust balls. Some of the more mounting hardware. Your diff parts, which include bearings, yay. So, and more mounting hardware. And then of course some diff grease. C bag is the shock stuff. You have your shock oil, springs. So this may be rears. Yeah, this may be rears. So there's springs, shock oil, bearings for mounting, your shock O-rings. There's the shock shafts. And then the D-bag. Why do people laugh when I say that? There's your front springs, more mounting hardware, some other stuff in here, so let's look. There's the servo saver parts, bladders for the rear shocks. The front and rear shocks do use different bladders, I think. They did on the TD2, but I don't see, oh yeah. So if you can see the red bladders are for the rear, green bladders are for the front. There's your springs, bearings for the wheels, body clips, mounting hardware, and hinge pins. Shock shafts, turnbuckles, and front axles. And we have the TD2 Astute 2022 decal sheet. If you do plan on painting it like the box, here's your sticker sheet, or you can paint it however you want. It does come with window masks for the body. And finally, the instruction manual. Tools you'll need, paint you'll need, how to set up your electronics, and then right into the build. Now, if you followed along our TD4 Super Avante build, most likely, almost 95% of the first half of the build, probably to right about here, is going to be the same. you can check that out, or just follow along when we start the build series. You can follow along and watch it with that. Then it starts getting a little different in the front end because the front end is obviously different. Still lay down shock, still cantilever front end. Installing electronics, body, painting, cutting out, decaling your fenders, front and rear fenders, and then in the back, some option parts and how to tune the TD2, spare parts, and parts list. And there you have it. We really loved our TD4 Super Avante chassis, so I'm super excited to get the TD2 built and out on the track. We're going to be using the same electronics or similar electronics that we use in the TD4 in the TD2, but I'm not quite sure which ones exactly just yet. So please make sure you stay tuned, because we're going to be doing a full build series on this car that will also kind of fill in the blanks about what we're going to be using in this car. So please make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notifier to be notified of future videos in this series. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.